We have an incredible level of drivers in F1 at the moment, and I thought I would go and talk about some of them with a man that I've known since I was 10 years old. Trevor Carlin has had 26 drivers come to F1 through his junior Formula team, and he's got a few stories in the vault.
Congratulations to our champion, Danny Ricciardo.
Takuma Sato, he's been the class of the field this year.
Sainz emerged in a lead he was never to relinquish.
Trev, always great to chat with you. We've got this massive wave of talent that's come into F1. 26 drivers, as per my latest counting, have come through the doors of Carlin. So let's walk down memory lane a little bit. First of all, I want to ask you, when these drivers come to you, they're young, they're raw, they're still finding their feet in the sport. How much of what you see in the junior formulas are you still seeing when they get to Formula One?
It's a bit weird, really, because some of these lads we meet, well, certainly these days, we meet them when they're 14 for the first time, and and they are literally kids. So back in my early days, the drivers were older. Some of the people who did Formula 3 were 20 years old and 21 and 22. So there's quite a difference now in the age gap between the first time I meet them. The one thing that seems apparent, and that's through all the ages, is that to me, and maybe it's just my, just me being me, but they don't seem to change. Obviously, they grow up, they mature, they grow a lot taller in the case of some of them, but their attitude and their how they are, their demeanour, stays exactly the same, and that goes through from. You, who's a great friend of the team for a long time. To me, you haven't changed. Takuma Sato, who was our first champion, and is now doing IndyCar today. So I see him, not currently because of COVID and everything, but I see him regularly. He's exactly the same today as he was back in 2000 when I first met him. So it's quite refreshing that these megastars stay grounded and stay normal.
So before they become megastars, they're here with you and with potentially other teams along the path. They're all trying to knock on the door of Formula One. Some of them get there, some of them are lucky enough to get there. How much of an input do you have in that final step? Because the process up to F2 is one stage of your career and your life, and it's relatively straightforward. It's the last step into F1. So what I'm trying to get to is, do you have Helmut Marko on the phone with you? Do you have other team bosses on the phone to you saying, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of this kid?
I think the same again, back in the earlier days, people started to notice the junior drivers from Formula 3 level up, and then it was F3000 and GP2, so it wasn't quite so clear. But now, by the time these guys get to F2, they've already been picked up by a junior programme. Because the F1 teams have got a bit of a scouting regime and junior programs, so they're looking, so they know. But it's, I don't know. Helmut, if you spot a real talent and you phone Helmut, you've got to be right. So you can't mess about. So you've got to be able to spot it.
We brought you a photo album to walk down memory lane a little bit. So let's just start with the most successful of the F1 stars, Sebastian Vettel, 4-time world champion. What was he like in his World Series days with you?
Well, I mean, it was one of the best moments. Well, it certainly was one of the best moments of our career at the time. We were entrusted by Helmut. We had a spare seat in our World Series team, and Helmut asked if we'd run this young kid in a one-off race in Misano. He rocked up, had no practice, he'd been doing Formula 3 at the time. He turned up on the practice day, he was top 6, quite comfortable with the car, doing a good job. Qualified 3rd for the first race. We thought, oh, this is pretty good. And finished 3rd on the first race on the Saturday. Oh. So we thought, oh, he's not bad, not bad. And I thought, maybe not such a mega star, but really good. And then that day I was driving back to the UK, and for a British F3 race. On the way back to the airport, I got a phone call from the team saying, oh, Sebastian's now P2 because Ben Hanley had been disqualified for track limits. I said, okay, oh, that's good. I got on the plane, got home. When I landed, my phone was full of messages. congratulations. And I opened it, and what's happened? Phoned the guys. They said, oh, Pastor Maldonado, who had won the race, had been disqualified for a technical infringement, so Sebastian is now the winner. So I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. He's won his first race, but yeah, really he's still a P3 guy.
Yeah.
The following day, we had another race at Misano. Sebastian qualified on pole and led every lap. And then that was the moment I realised the kid had got it. So it's no surprise what he's done. I'm super happy for him. One of our favourite drivers ever.
So, Daniel Ricciardo, you know, the big smile, we saw a lot of that in his British Formula 3 days with you. We're still seeing it.
Yeah.
What was he like?
Well, I mean, there's nothing to say really. I mean, it was an absolute pleasure, a joy. He's still one of our best friends ever. Super quick, super reliable, did the job, and a great team player. And we saw, you see the smile all the time, but you know, when you're in the team, you see that there's a steely determination underneath that. So it's not all just smiles. If he wasn't on pole, we wanted to know why. And we were that year we were up against a team with a huge resource. With wind tunnel testing and all sorts of stuff, and we had pretty much half their budget, so it was a battle for us to beat them, and the only reason we beat the other team was because of that.
He's got a reputation F1 now as arguably the best overtaker on the grid. Did you see elements of that back in the day?
Not a lot really, because he started at the front and just checked out. You know, F3's like.
Fair enough.
F3's can be a bit dull, or it certainly was, and he'd get pole and check out.
Fair enough. Carlos Sainz, he's now a Ferrari superstar. He's going to be a Ferrari superstar in the future. He didn't have a particularly great season in British F3 with you guys, did he?
No, no. I mean, it was a new car year. It was the first year of the 312. So everyone was all a bit at sorts with it. But the one thing that you could always rely on with Carlos, if there was any moisture in the air or rain, we're going to be at the front. And you know, he won his first race at Monza, just dominated it in torrential rain.
Carlos Sainz, the 17-year-old Spaniard, the youngest driver in the championship, makes it 2 wins here in Monza.
We got a picture here of him and his dad.
Yeah.
Did you know, at that time, he's obviously young, but he had the big name. Do you think he felt the pressure of that?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's the legacy of being Carlos Senior's son, being a Red Bull driver, so pressure from Helmut.
Yeah.
But you know, I think you mustn't underestimate what a powerful figure Carlos Senior is. I mean, he's a very strong man in every respect, and he expected a lot from his son, and it was tough. And until Carlos got the chance, I was really pleased when I saw him arrive at McLaren, and I saw him relax.
And so you didn't think at Red Bull he had that opportunity to just breathe a bit? I
think he struggled with the pressure, and now he's relaxed and driving naturally and normally. It's been brilliant. What it'll be being at Ferrari is a different kettle of fish. But at the end of the day, the expectations aren't on him. The expectations are on Charles. So maybe it'll play into Carlos's hands.
So off the back of that, do you think that people who expect him to go there and just be a timid number 2 are wrong?
Oh, no chance. That's not going to happen. I think he's going to shock people how quick he is.
Well, time will tell. Your most recent export, I guess, into F1, Lando Norris. Yeah. I mean, he looks like a child. I suppose he is a child in that photo, isn't he?
He is a child. He was 15 years old. I mean, he was from a height point of view, he's a late developer. But you know, now he's normal height, 5'10" or whatever he is. Yeah, I mean, I remember when he first came down for his first seats fitting, it was...
You have to put blocks on the pedals for him?
Well, we had to move the whole pedal assembly forward, and the worst thing was the steering column. Had to extend it so far out of the chassis, there was no support, and it was almost bending because it was so far away, but didn't seem to bother him when he was driving it.
How impressed have you been with Lando in F1? Because as a rookie last year, I thought he was very, very strong.
Well, you know, I mean, a lot of people have asked me this question, and all I can say is that personally, I think he's the real deal. You give him the car, you give him the equipment, and he always delivers. And that's what he's doing now.
It's a funny one with Lando, isn't it? Because I felt throughout his junior career there was a little bit of a criticism with him that, you know, he did have a strong budget. He was able to do all these other bits of testing and things like that. But you have to still, when the pressure's on qualifying nowadays, Q2, Q3 to deliver the lap, you still have to do it, haven't you?
Yeah, and people talk about the testing and stuff that Lando did. What they don't know, because I was part of it, they don't realise that the first day he did the extra testing with a reference driver or something, he matched the reference driver. So then the extra 5 or 6 days he did, it was just perfecting his craft. He wasn't building up to the speed.
Yeah.
He was quick enough on day one to match the reference driver, and this is what people don't realise.
Yeah.
And you know, I've seen it, and I totally believe in him.
So let's go back. Your first British Formula 3 Championship winning season. There's a little ginger racer there in the corner who's now working with us on Sky F1.
Yeah.
What are your memories of Anthony from that time?
Well, I mean, we always knew he was going to be fantastically fast. We'd seen him in Formula Ford. We didn't expect him to be quite as quick as he was. And when we started off the year, and he was quick in testing, and then we had all sorts of issues, and it didn't really gel. Taku was being his normal self, just racking up the poles and the wins. And then we went to Po for a one-off invitation race, different tyre with Michelin, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, Ant clicked, and he went pole. He led every lap by miles. The French newspapers went mad. They called him the English acrobat because his car was on the grass and 2 wheels in the air most of the time. And then after that moment, we came back to the UK, and then Taku realised he had a fight on his hands.
And look at this, Davidson down the inside, great move.
And he made it look so easy getting past Takuma Sato.
Taku then really lifted his game, and Ant was impressed. Like how Taku always had a little bit more. So it was. I mean, I think there was 23 races we did that year, and I think we won 18 of them.
Yeah, it was an extraordinary season, and for you as a team, it was a really important year, wasn't it? As you know, it sort of underlined this potential that was there as Carlin Motorsport. I know you'd been in the sport for many years before that, but to knock off that first championship and how it must have been a big year.
Yeah, we sort of we realised when we got Takuma, this was a great opportunity to have a winning driver with a proper budget, and have decent links with Honda. We wanted to show the world how good we were and how good a Japanese driver could be. And so we put everything we could into it. Everything. Boyo, you know, my best friend, my race engineer at the time, who's now got his own team. We did everything. We were working till midnight every night, perfecting the cars, and the cars were beautiful. So it's no surprise to me we didn't win. And then we had by far the best two drivers, so it's awesome.
Let's talk about Takuma and Japanese drivers, because you know Taku arrived in F1 with his reputation of being a bit wild. He had some big shunts, but he was kind of like that in F3 as well, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, it was funny because Taku first raced for us in 2000, and I asked his dad, I said, what do you want to do about accident damage? Do you want me to insure the car, or do you want to just pay for it as you go? And the dad said, oh, well, we'll just pay for it as we go. So end of year one, that Taku had racked up a bill of about £100,000 worth of accident damage. So I thought, so poor old dad and team, because we had to keep fixing it. So at the beginning of the second year, I said to the dad, I said, right, how do you want to do this? Do you want to insure it, or do you want to pay for it? He said, oh, Trevor, please, Trevor-san, please, we insure the car. Okay, so we bought the insurance, £15,000. Yeah. Taku, in the second year, won the British Championship, won 15 races, won Macau, won Zandvoort, and he did probably £100 worth of damage. So Taku learned, he stopped crashing. Yeah.
What about when he went on to F1, and then of course now he's won the Indy 500? You know, he's had a remarkable career actually on the whole, despite the fact maybe, yes, he didn't win races in F1 or the World Championship, but he's built a very strong career, hasn't he?
Yeah, and we all know, and you know especially, it's Formula One is, it's as, unfortunately, it's about the car you're in at a certain moment in time. And Taku didn't really have the right Honda engine car at the right time. if he'd been driving a McLaren Honda back in the 90s, whatever it was, he would have had a chance to fight for the World Championship. But he never really had the equipment to fight for it. But he's carved out a brilliant career, super successful, super popular, and a trailblazer for Japanese drivers.
Let's talk about the current Japanese driver you're running,
Yep.
Yuki Tsunoda, winner at Silverstone, of course, in Formula 2. He's going to potentially be an important part in this whole Red Bull-Honda relationship going forward, isn't he?
I think so, but deservedly so. It's not just a sort of let's just put a Japanese driver in because it's Honda. I think what we've got in Yuki and what Red Bull and Honda have in Yuki is another Taku. So if gets the chance we've got to get him the points so he can be eligible for F1. But I think once he's in F1, he'll be super fast. Got to earn his stripes at AlphaTauri and do a good job and face the pressure from Helmut. But it'd be nice to see him in in Red Bull, 2 or 3 years in a Red Bull F1 car.
So let's have a look at the photo album again. Kevin Magnussen.
Yep.
He's not shy of getting his elbows out in F1. He's always in amongst it. He's not afraid of upsetting the other drivers. Did you guys have to spend a lot of time in the stewards' room back in the day?
You know what? Not really. The biggest issue we had in the year that Kevin drove for us in Formula 3, we had horrendous reliability, and for whatever reason, it always struck Kevin's car.
All right.
He was a rookie coming into F3 in the UK, and he was against Felipe Nasr, world-class driver. Even then, super cool. And at the beginning of the year, Kevin would always be quicker in free practice. He'd always be there ready to do the lap in pole, and for whatever reason, his car would break down. We had misfires, spark plug problems. It was all new car electronics issues, and they always struck Kev. So what happened was that Kev then was always against it and having to fight his way through, and he was pretty cool. We didn't have a lot of incidents. In the end, Felipe beat him to the title, but I think if we hadn't had a reliability issue, it would have been touch and go. It's only since, to my mind, and in World Series he wasn't a crasher.
Right.
It's only since in F1 that he's become this elbows out sort of tougher. But he takes no prisoners. He's a proper racer.
Yeah, I like him for that.
Yeah,
I like the fact that he doesn't shy away from it. There's a driver here that I want to talk to you about, Antonio Felix da Costa. He's now the Formula E champion.
Yeah.
He was a star for you guys at Macau, wasn't he?
To be honest, he's been a star for us in everything he's ever done for us.
Should he have been in F1?
Absolutely, yes. 100%.
And is it just a question of not in the right place at the right time with the Red Bull program?
I think it was just timing. I think there was Antonio and Daniel Kvyat. They were both there. They were both ready. One seat, 2 into 1 doesn't work, and unfortunately Antonio was got the fallout. But as he said off his own back yesterday, without Red Bull helping him with his career, he wouldn't have been where he is today. So it's bad, but it's also good.
Of course. Now, there's a couple of drivers I want to ask you about who never raced for you,
No.
but of course they tested your cars. Kimi Raikkonen had won the Formula Renault Championship, and they were wondering about the next step. And then before he signed for Sauber, you took him off to Wales to test at Pembrey, didn't you?
Yeah, it was the funniest thing. So obviously I've known of Kim. He didn't know him personally. He was doing Formula Ford for a bit. Then he stopped racing. Then he started doing Formula Renault 2000 with John Booth at Manor, and he dominated the championship. Did a brilliant job. It was managed by Dave Robertson and Steve Robertson, our good friends. Till today. Yeah. And all of a sudden, Boyo, who's great friends with Steve, he said, "Hey Trev, Steve wants us to give Kimi a test in the F3 car." I said, "Okay, cool." He said, because he's got an F1 test coming up with Sauber. Really? And the biggest car Kimi had ever driven was a Renault 2-litre car. So we went down to Pembrey with our F3 car. Taku was there as well. Bit wet to start with. And we did 2 full days with Kimi and Taku. And Kimi, in the end, actually was quicker than Takuma.
Which is impressive for a guy who's got straight in it. Did you think at that point he's ready to go to F1?
No chance. You don't go from Renault 2-litre to F1. But then he went and did the tests with Sauber. I don't know if it was Mugello.
Mugello.
and blew them away.
I mean, there's a story, isn't there? Michael Schumacher walking down to the Sauber garage saying, "Who is this kid in the car? Because he looks really good."
Yeah. So so Kimi did that himself. It was quite ridiculous, really, to go from Renault 2000, 2 days at Pembrey in a British F3 car, and then to F1. It's outstanding. And you know, Kimi is a legend. He should have won far more World Championships. Really should.
Let's talk about another F1 world champion, Jenson Button, who's now working with us at Sky.
Yeah.
He didn't, again, race for you, but he did come in and have a test, or a few tests for you guys, didn't he?
Yeah, it's the same deal. Dave, Robbo and Steve were thinking of signing him up. They'd never done driver management before, and they fancied a bit of it. Steve had stopped racing. They wanted to stay involved. So they said to us, would we take this young kid down to Pembrey in our F3, Pembrey again, and see what we think of him. So it was a cold, quiet day. We turned up on our own, just us. This kid turned up with his dad. He didn't have a seat, so he sort of got some jumpers and bits of old cushion and jumped him in the car. He'd never driven a single-seater before, maybe a couple of F4 tests. And so we sent him out, and the thing about Pembrey is really quiet.
And I can hear the sheep normally.
Yeah, absolutely, the sheep and the cows moving. And in those days, we had a gearbox, with up and down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so the art of racing driving then was you had to do this heel and toe thing. So you blip the throttle as you brake, and so we sent Jenson out for the first time and explained what he had to do. And the first time he went into the hairpin, which you know very well, he went from 5th gear all the way down to 2nd, and it was a beautiful blip every time he did it. And we thought, wow, that's impressive. And then he just kept on driving the whole day, no fuss, no trouble. There was no benchmarks. We didn't know how quick he was, but his style and how beautifully he dealt with it. And every time he drove, he got faster and faster. So he said to Dave, yeah, he's pretty good. Maybe sign him. And then there was another month went by, and they said, could you just give him one more test? So we went down again, and there was another team there then. Russell Ecott, our best mate, was there with Portman Racing. And I think it was Warren Hughes was driving. He's a proper front-running driver. Yep. And they had the updated car, we had the old car, and Jenson was quicker. We phoned up Dave and said, yep, sign him. And the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Last world champion that I've got in our album, Nico Rosberg.
Yeah.
Now, he did it was only a one-off cameo, really, with you guys, wasn't he, at Macau?
Yeah.
Did you have enough time with him to get an impression of Nico at that stage?
Not enough, really. I mean, he was super professional. He turned up prepared. He was a great team player. Worked well with Mark, his engineer, and everything. And the best bit, in my opinion, a bit like Lando did the other day, his car got damaged in one of the sessions. I can't remember; it was too old, too long ago now for me to remember. But Nico got his race suit off, put his shorts on and his t-shirt on, and he was there taking off the front wishbones himself. I've got a photograph somewhere, not here, of him actually working on the car, and he was super cool, super appreciative. And I think the next year he went back and he ran right at the front, so it served a purpose for us and for him.
Yeah, sure. Now, a driver who many people say could have and should have been a World Championship contender one day, Robert Kubica. I remember this in 2005 because you guys were against him in World Series by Renault. You had other drivers. He won the championship that year.
Yeah.
And you brought him back to do the Macau Grand Prix. What do you remember of that time with Robert?
Well, firstly, we knew Robert was like one of the best talents we'd ever seen. Hadn't driven for us, we'd fight it against him. And I think in World Series, we had a better car than him. And he still beat us to the championship. So we were massively impressed. And that particular year was the year where Mercedes-Benz had come into Formula 3. And they'd spent millions of euros on a new engine, a new package. And to be fair, Honda hadn't quite kept up. So it was really frustrating. But I thought we got the best race of the year at Macau. I want to go there and prove that Carlin, Honda are strong enough to win. And so I found the best driver possible, and it was Robert Kubica. And we basically were running second, we got the lead, with 3 laps to go, and it was a safety car. And then unfortunately we got slipstreamed on the start of the last lap and couldn't respond. So Robert finished second. He'd won it, he'd got the lead, he'd taken his time, past Degrassi, and then we got messed over by the safety car. So yeah, fabulous drive. But on the back of that, I remember vividly Mario Tyson was standing with us on the pit wall because his touring car team was racing. He was the boss of BMW then. He was watching, and within a month Robert had signed for BMW Formula One, so it worked out great for everybody.
When you look at Robert's circumstances today, he's had the accident, his F1 career has been effectively curtailed. How much of a loss do you think that is to F1 to have not seen him there up at the sharp end?
It's a tragedy really, because he was in his prime, he was ready to go. He was favoured by the big teams, liked him. So he was ready to take that jump into one of the winning teams, and then exactly at the wrong moment he had his silly accident. But that sort of in a way sums up Robert. He can't help himself. He wants to drive, he wants to race, so he's had some downtime. He goes and drives a rally car. I mean, God, it's such a shame, but I'm sure if you ask him today, he said he wouldn't change anything in his life.
Sky Sports F1. Feel it all.